Let's start with the Benioff and Weiss thing because
they're gone.
They're gone. And this was
Wild.
crazy. But we said this. We said this on this show. We said that
not surprising.
Yeah.
Wild.
It is wild.
Wild.
No doubt. But remember when we were talking, the first thing, Ryan and I were just talking about this off air.
Yeah.
The first thing that happens is that they announce that they're going to do this. They've been, and by the way, they've been developing this thing for a very long time. It's the Star Wars thing, at least 2 years, at least, if not more. And they're involved in it. They were going to do 3 movies. At first, it was a series of films. It wasn't 3.
Trilogy.
It was no. At first, it was a series of films. Then it was announced as a trilogy, right? And okay, now it's a trilogy. They're not necessarily going to be directing it, but they're going to be writing it. They're going to be producing it. They're involved.
2022 was when it was the first ones coming out.
And then there was the report of you know what? They're going to be writing the treatment and they're going to be consulting, but not necessarily involved in all 3. Okay, and then the Netflix deal happens, and then Kevin Feige's getting involved in a Star Wars movie. Well, when's that fucking movie going to come out? If these movies are coming out, and then they do this thing with the Game of Thrones. We don't. Then they get more backlash, and now once again, directors that were or producers, directors, writers, whatever, that were involved in a Star Wars project are gone. It's happened now, 4 times?
This is ridiculous.
It's Colin Trevorrow, Lord Miller. Who was it? Lord that wrote
Phil Lord just tweeted one word out last night, and it was "yup."
Right.
He literally just went "yup."
That insinuates more than
that speaks volumes to me.
What do you guys think happened?
Shit, man. If you look, I mean, there's a lot of different things that could have happened.
Right.
Creative differences is one thing. The fact that they just did not see eye to eye with Kathleen Kennedy of what they wanted to do, what Lucasfilm and Disney wanted them to do.
But this was a signed contract. So do you think that Disney bought them out of the contract, or do you think that they wanted to walk away?
Maybe a little bit of both. Maybe a little both. Maybe and what was the agreement to when they knew maybe they were starting to develop it, knowing it wasn't going anywhere, that they then said, yeah, let's do this Netflix thing. And then Disney's like, well, I guess you guys aren't really all heads in with us. Mm-hmm. And then, you have Benioff and Weiss probably, well, you're getting Feige involved. What do we need to get involved in this for? So is Feige taking over what they were doing in the first place? Are they going to be doing something completely?
Is there a trilogy?
Well, Feige is now running Marvel, all of Marvel.
Right.
And so if they can't do it because of the Netflix deal, which is a complete spin.
Well, they shouldn't have signed this. If they had this first, they shouldn't have signed the Netflix deal if they already were part of this. Yeah.
I mean, these quotes that came out not only from them but Kathleen Kennedy is so scripted.
What were her stuff?
David Benioff and Dan Weiss are incredible storytellers. We hope to include them in the journey forward when they are able to step away from their busy schedule to focus on Star Wars. That's bullshit.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
She was trending #1.
Yeah.
After
Yeah. It's
Kathleen
bad. It happened again.
It's too much.
I think that this is probably what's going to happen. She's got because it's all about money. We know this. She's going to hit a home run with Rise of Skywalker as far as financial goes. The movie's going to make a shitload of money.
And Mandalorian too. It's going to look like it's going to really go off.
Even though
they don't really make money
in
on Mandalorian.
But it's still as long as it's critical and it sells tickets to Disney Plus. It is. It's harder, but it still falls under her regime. So we'll give you that. But the big money is Rise of Skywalker. I think she walks off the court after that one.
Yep.
Get the fuck out of there because it ain't working.
Yeah.
You keep losing her. And you said this off air, and I could not agree more. She seems to go get the hot toy when it's hot.
Yep.
She goes after J.J. Ryan Johnson and
Trevorrow after Jurassic World blows it out of the park.
Lord and Miller, and then she's like, okay, they're popular, do it. And then, well, that's not what I want. Well, but this is why you hired us.
Yes,
but that's not. I want to do this instead of and then it falls apart. She can't hold on to directors and writers and producers. This is why it's one of these things. She's either doing too much, or she's just getting involved too much.
But let me ask you this, because
old studio thoughts.
Maybe
it's not like Star Wars is the only franchise that's had this. Marvel has lost directors.
Sure,
so has DC. Do you just find that Star Wars has done it more often, or do you think
more often and way more publicly and in strange times? Like the DC thing, you could look at the Flash, right?
And the Batman, Flash.
Which the Batman? Which one? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to.
Ben Affleck.
we've
the
lost
Affleck
actor,
situation,
but remember
yeah.
he was supposed to before Matt Reeves. He was directing, producing, writing,
Right.
working on.
That's a different situation because of the stuff he was going through personally, and like that's a whole different scenario.
Same thing with Snyder, who was going through stuff personally.
Yes.
But I'm
So
just
that's-
saying that there have been directors, and the Flash situation. This is our third set of directors.
That's another that one I think is the easiest one to equate this one to because the other two are more personal situations and that can happen to anybody and if that's what happened in Star Wars I'd say well that's not really on her.
Marvel with Thor with Michelle McLaren.
That's a good example. Yeah, that
trying
was
to
Patty
think.
Jenkins.
Patty Jenkins.
Patty
Patty
Jenkins.
Jenkins.
and that was what 7 years ago or something. So it happens.
Yeah.
You're right, but this has happened.
Often.
And Rogue One, it almost happened too. It was just it did happen. It was just quieter because they brought Tony Gilroy in to do all this stuff, and Gareth Edwards just was the only one out of all these people that played ball. Colin Trevorrow didn't want to play ball. He
It's actually
fought
smart of him, probably.
for his career.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked out. But you look at Colin Trevorrow didn't hurt him because now he's doing the other Jurassic movie, and it's just. But Lord and Miller, boom. Bump heads, and then they crush it with Spider-Man, Spider-Verse. So, and I know they didn't direct that, but they had their
produced
hands.
it and it's
They
animated,
had their
so
hands
it's
all
different.
over it. Yeah, but yeah, it's between. I mean, we're only looking at what 4 years. If you look at all this, 2015 was really when they started to get all these people in.
And Kathleen Kennedy, you think, is the reason for that?
One of to say she's the only reason isn't fair, but she
A top reason.
when you're
Could
the-
be
when-
Iger as well, and could be all of those things.
But when you're the president of the company, it falls on you.
Yeah.
And it's one of these things to where it's like it's just time. It's you've had your run, and I think she's gonna hit that final shot. She's gonna walk. She's gonna be working for a very long time. She is a good producer. She is. But the Star Wars thing is just not working.
That statement was so woof.
It's
so
awful.
woof. Here's what I've said on Rule of Two a number of times, and why Feige is, I think, successful with Marvel is that he understands the property, he understands the mythology, he plans it out way in advance, and then based on everything now, all these directors going off, Kathleen Kennedy's a great producer, but I don't think she understands the mythology. I don't think she knows what really truly is Star Wars at its core.
No, she just had to
She
make
just
movies.
goes. She goes, oh, we need to make a movie. Let's get that person. Let's get that
Right.
person. Let's get that person.
Right.
And then the mythology creeps in with all the fans' reactions and everything, and she
But here's
then
the-
has to let these people go.
And this is something that I don't think she realizes, and I think that it should be clarified from something that you said yesterday that I thought was accurate, was that the majority of the ticket sales I know. The majority of ticket
Catch
sales
yourself.
that I know
Man.
that come from I didn't even finish. I could be wrong. But the majority of ticket sales that come from all these movies, the Star Wars movies, we'll focus on the Star Wars movies, come from the casual fan. Because the casual fan has to see your movie in order for it to be a hit. Now, repeat business from hardcore fans obviously has a lot to do with it. But at the core, the reason that these movies do work their best is because you have this core hardcore fan base. They are the nucleus. They are it's the Star Wars fans that do care about this inside baseball stuff, that do care about the fun, the lore, and keeping it true and all that. It's that grows it out, and that passion spreads to other, because the hardcore fan takes his friend who doesn't know, or her friend who doesn't know Star Wars, and brings them there too, and hopefully that spreads. But you can't ignore that as the creator, and that I think she does. I think she looks at Star Wars fans and goes, it's more about the consumer who's paying the dollar. I don't think she cares about the hardcore Star Wars fandom. It's my personal opinion.
As an isolated incident, are you upset that Benioff and Weiss are no longer working on a Star Wars trilogy?
Not so much, because it's not about that. It's the bigger problem of why does this keep happening?
Right, but
Yeah.
I'm asking you, this specific one is not a huge uh-oh or bummer for you.
Yes, it is, if it means, because I'm 95% sure that they were working on like an Old Republic type thing.
yeah.
And if that goes away now, if they don't do that anymore because that was kind of their vision and they don't think anybody else really wants to touch it, yeah, I'll be bummed because I want to
Right.
see. I want to
You
see.
want an Old Republic
I want
movie.
an Old Republic.
Same.
Bad series.
And you
whatever.
think that's
it might
95% likely, you're saying? The Old Republic might go away because of this?
be. No. I'm just saying that's.
If
I'm
that
pretty
is.
sure
That was
that's.
probably what they were
I'm pretty
doing.
sure that's what they were working on. Let's say 90%.
Riley, what about you for this? As an isolated incident, are you upset to not have Benioff and Weiss?
You know, if this would have happened at the height of Game of Thrones, where we were all, and
On
this
board.
is before season 8, I would have been upset. I would have been, oh my God, these guys are crushing it. Then we see Game of Thrones season 8 come. It kind of goes out on a
It's got a little
whimper.
Last Jedi on it.
Right, yeah. At least for the fandom, for me, I wasn't that involved against it. It just kind of faded out with a whimper, in my opinion. I liked half of that last episode, and the other half was like, eh. So for this, I'm not that bummed. I think there are better directors out there.
But what about if we lose the Old Republic?
That would piss me off.
That's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm not really bummed about losing them as producers and writers. I'm more bummed if means we lose Old Republic. However, if it does turn out that Feige is overrunning with Kathleen Kennedy and says, let's start this first Old Republic thing together, then let's cut our losses and let's do our thing. But I just think this announcement, this didn't happen like last night.
This has been a long
because
time
of the
coming.
Netflix timing of things.
They've been out of it. They've been out for a while. And the same thing like Ryan Johnson.
So why do you think this came out last night?
I don't know why it came out last night. It's strange. Maybe anytime you release a story like this, it's gonna get covered big.
You know why?
But they tried to get buried last night.
It's because of Mandalorian.
Yeah,
the Mandalorian's coming out. The
hoping they're gonna talk about
response is
that.
great. People are going to buy that. They're literally they know that the hardcore Star Wars fans like us are going to talk about it, but the general people that we were talking about are going to be like, huh?
Whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah.
When's the Mandalorian on? I got to check out this Star Wars-y thing.
Right.
I think they're like literally going, just get it out there.
Get it out there.
Forget
Right,
about
right.
it because it needs to die down before Rise of Skywalker comes out in a couple
Good call.
months.
I think that's a great call.
Legitimate question.
Yeah.
Josh, do you care about this at all?
I think care is the wrong word. I think
Does it affect you at all in your viewing experience?
no.
No.
I like when you guys talk about Old Republic. I would like to see that. It sounds really interesting to me.
Yeah, I showed you that trailer.
Yeah.
right?
What
It's
about
really
business
cool.
side though?
That's where I think, right, is as someone who knows a lot of people and as someone who has like actually had to deal with studio heads and TV heads when you write a script or when you come up with an idea, when there's too many cooks in the kitchen and the main cook in the kitchen has absolutely no idea what your project is, and it's just like, oh, we need more of this.
Right.
I'm like, that's not what the show is. Like, if you ever watch that movie, The TV Set, I think, with David Duchovny and Justine Bateman, or the TV show or something like that. It's an amazing movie. Sigourney Weaver plays the studio head, and the show starts as an hour-long drama, and then it ends as a 30-minute sitcom, right? As they're like developing this show. I think Kathleen Kennedy does not really do well with some of these directors that have a vision and her vision isn't that vision, right? And because she's the main producer, there is a bit, I mean, listen, who just passed away? Robert Evans. Very, very famous for It's My Way or the Highway. That is a very old studio model. And the reason that David Benioff and Dan Weiss went to Netflix is because Netflix is notorious for being like, do your thing.
Yeah.
Right? And I think HBO, when Casey Bloys stepped in, he was like, do your shit, man. Game of Thrones is crushing it right now. And maybe them doing their own shit and the final season of Game of Thrones really soured some people. And I would have been a little more upset had the news come out yesterday, like, 2 years from now, that Benioff and Weiss had no idea what they were doing with Game of Thrones the first season, because I know they've done movies and stuff before, but when you are handed a franchise like Star Wars and you are handed like an old trilogy or something like that, if they are not the diehard, like you guys, canon fans, read all the books, going kind of thing, and they present a trilogy option and maybe they didn't know what they were doing.
See, but this is I see where you're going with that, but I actually spin it the other way around. I think that when she's pitched things that are too inside baseball and too like, well, what if we didn't hit like Old Republic stuff and then Darth being no one's going to care about that. But it counts for the story. I think she wants to go so commercial and so mainstream. I think that's what some of the problems with the new trilogy has been, is that it lacks some of that stuff, like the core kind of inside stuff that made the original trilogy. So, I mean, the thing about the original trilogy, you don't have to be so locked into the lore, but it created lore just from visuals and just how everything was lived in, everything, and it doesn't. I don't know. There's just something about this regime that doesn't seem as kind of tied in.
My biggest beef or whatever, and I think Twitter's beef and the Freddie Prinze Jr. rant and everything was, which I enjoyed, and I think Star Wars fandom is very, very sensitive. This we know, but when they say the movies are for kids, okay. To a certain extent, yes. But I think
Mandalorian does not. For kids.
It's not a movie.
Yeah, true.
There is a kid in all of us, right? That we want that youthful whatever what brought us to the theater that made us love Star Wars in the first place every time we go to see a Star Wars movie. And parents now who grew up with the Star Wars want to take their kids and they want those movies to be the same experience that they had to keep the fandom going, right? And I don't think that Kathleen Kennedy sees it like that.
Maybe.
I think so. I think it's going to your point about the inside baseball stuff.
Yes.
Is that's the fandom right there. They love that stuff. That you can incorporate that organically into a story.
I think she does care about to try to, because again, as a business, you want to be able to grow your fandom.
But like a parent comes in and he goes, and dad's like, or the son's like, Dad, who's Darth Bane? And you're like, listen to this, Darth
she doesn't
Bane
give a
is
shit
this
about
person.
She doesn't probably even know who Darth Bane is.
Let me ask you this, going back to what you said, Christian, about mainstream. She likes mainstream.
Yeah.
What do you think, just so I know what you mean, is the most mainstream Star Wars movie that has ever been?
As much as I like the movie, I'd say The Force Awakens.
Is the most mainstream.
Yeah, and I like the film, but it's safe. It's a very safe film. And it's
So you think mainstream can work, but
absolutely.
it's not necessarily what you as a diehard are looking for.
It's safe and familiar, and I've seen it all before. But I also put that movie as my number 4 Star Wars movie.
Right.
Let's make that very clear. And you look at a movie, and the thing that you cannot say about Rian Johnson, everybody out there, whether you hate the movie or love the movie, he took a lot of risks, and he did something very. It's a very different Star Wars movie. I feel it doesn't really feel like Star Wars.
Well, clearly, if it was more mainstream, it would be more universally.
You loved,
Yeah.
but I think that there's just things sometimes that she shies away from because she thinks people aren't going to get it, but people will get it if you make it good. Mm-hmm. If you like anything, like look at Guardians of the Galaxy is a perfect example. When you look at a movie,
made a
like
ride for it at Disney.
you can make things. Game of Thrones in general is a project that it's like, wait, I just don't think if she was ahead of HBO that show ever goes. Game of Thrones.
Amanda.
No way.
She's like,
No way.
I bring it up all the time in the show, and I know it. If like my wife is into something, a 90% of the general movie-going public will be into something, right? Or even TV. She's watched Game of Thrones twice all the way through now. There's something particularly awesome about that show.
Character development.
Yeah. And that's like to shout out Josh Robert Thompson, who did an unbelievable job doing our deepfake George Lucas
It was on Rule of
reacts.
Two yesterday.
It is awesome.
He does Morgan Freeman for a while. That's fantastic.
So good.
It's so good when he goes
sweet, competent.
when he goes like you can do it when he's like oh look, there's Rey. Great storyline. I mean, at the end of Empire, Luke didn't even have a hand. Now she's just friends with everybody or something like that.
Yeah.
It's great.
You dropped something.
It's
The plot.
great.
Yeah. But we can go down this rabbit hole for a while.